So the Clemson Tigers secure the only undefeated record in FBS football, the ACC championship, and most likely a #1 seed in the college football playoff. We bring in Mike McDaniel from inside the ACC to help us break this one down. Instant analysis here, Mike. So thanks for jumping on board here. 45-37 final with Clemson. It would have been nice to have seen what would have happened. We all like to see finishes late in the game, and to see North Carolina in position after the onside play at the 50-yard line with about a minute left would have been nice had the refs gotten the call right.
Yeah, so the refs blow that onside kick there at the very end. UNC recovers the football. They would have had the ball at the 50-yard line with a chance to go down, try to score, and tie the game. They were down by 8 there with a minute left. And it's just another example of the ACC officiating, and the officiating on college level as a whole this season has been below par. It's gotten to the point now where you have officials blowing a potential call that could decide the outcome of a conference championship. And that's huge because of the college football playoff ramifications. Obviously, for teams on the outside looking in, if Clemson were to lose this game tonight, UNC would have had an opportunity to potentially jump up. But in addition to that, Stanford, after their victory in the Pac-12 championship, to see that happen is, kind of unfortunate there at the very end, because Stanford could have had a potential opportunity to be that fourth team in and get into a college football playoff should North Carolina pull that game off and they don't get into the playoff there in the Final Four. So it's unfortunate that the officiating kind of decide the play at the very end. But as you and I will get into here, North Carolina had multiple chances to kind of to pull within reach in this game, and not only that, but make it a little bit more competitive, just as Clemson had opportunities to pull away late and made some mistakes on both sides of the football to keep North Carolina in the game.
Hey, Mike, sorry.
Hey, it's okay. It froze up. It looked like you were about to say something, so I didn't know if it was my end or.
I don't know what is going on. I can edit this together.
Okay.
And re-upload it if I can get my camera to work. Man, I have no idea what's going on, why this is all screwed up. Why this keeps cutting out on me. There we go.
There you go.
Just clicked in for some reason. Okay, so we'll just keep going. I'll make an edit there.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, see if we can finish off here. So, Mike, let's pick it up. Late second quarter, North Carolina had scored to take a 16-14 lead. And I was really impressed with North Carolina stopping the playmakers on offense for Clemson. And that's where the Tar Heels, and we talked about this the other night, has really improved over 2014. But Clemson with a late score, and then they really put on the throttle in the third quarter to kind of separate themselves for much of the rest of the game.
Yeah, and that's a huge play by Deshaun Watson there, late second quarter going into the half to run that play down by the goal line. Clemson had some interesting calls there late in the first half to try to figure out how they're going to get the ball in the end zone. Some issues with clock management there down the stretch. Dabo Swinney, was asking Deshaun Watson from the sideline to spike the ball there once they got inside the 10-yard line as time was ticking down at the end of the second quarter. But then you had Watson try to sneak it in himself, and then Swinney calls a timeout, and then there's really just 6 seconds left for Clemson, and they have 2 plays. It was 3rd and goal, and they ran an interesting play where Wayne Gallman kind of had the option fake, and Watson chose to keep it and then tossed it over the top and kind of like a jump pass type play to Jordan Leggett, his tight end, to give Clemson the lead. and really swing back the momentum, because North Carolina there in the second quarter kind of took the momentum and they were heading in the right direction. That was a huge drive by Clemson before halftime.
We talked about the Heisman Trophy this week as well, Mike, and I know Derrick Henry has amazing numbers in the SEC, set a rushing record for the conference, but Deshaun Watson again proves to be the difference in a game where Clemson, with another quarterback, might have lost.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I think what was huge there in the second half was North Carolina had an opportunity to start the third quarter and go down and score and kind of answer Clemson's scoring drive right before half. And Marquise Williams throws a crucial interception. And then Clemson takes the ball right down the field, goes 95 yards in a scoring drive. And Wayne Gallman takes it in for a touchdown. They force North Carolina to punt. And then on the next drive after that, they score again. So 14 unanswered points coming out of halftime and 21 unanswered if you date back to the second quarter. Those 3 touchdowns put Clemson up 35-16. Deshaun Watson was a huge reason why. And we're talking about the Heisman race, and I wrote a column this morning on InsideTheACC.com about Watson's Heisman chances, specifically if Derrick Henry were to falter this afternoon. And if anybody saw the SEC championship game, Henry had another huge game, really wore down Florida in the second half. So, the Heisman Trophy is probably his. He was the front runner, but there were some great performances across college football this evening with Christian McCaffrey, of course, at Stanford, putting up over 460 all-purpose yards. And then Deshaun Watson tonight going over 420 yards and 5 touchdowns in total. I mean, he was unbelievable and a big reason why Clemson won the ACC and is well on their way to the number 1 seed in the college football playoff.
Yeah, Deshaun Watson, 26 of 42, 289 through the air, 131 on the ground. Marquise Williams, on the other hand, you would expect that Carolina would have needed a huge and very efficient game out of him to keep up with Clemson, but not the case. He got off to a rough start and really never, despite the 3 touchdown passes, never really righted the ship. 11 of 33 for 224.
Yeah, and he was 3 for 9 at the half. So it was kind of a strange half the way it worked out with just kind of the turnovers. There was a fake punt by Clemson that, Dabo Swinney lost his mind at his punter because they decided when they were in their own territory to try to fake punt, and Dabo Swinney wanted him to punt it away. It was just a very ugly and sloppy first half for Clemson. A lot of penalties that kept North Carolina in it. And Marquise Williams, right after that fake punt was failed by Clemson, or botched even for that matter, North Carolina was able to drive down, and Marquise Williams got North Carolina into the end zone there before half, which ended up being huge. But Clemson responded, and then, like they did all night, kind of pulled away in the second half to a degree, and then it got sloppy again. So Marquise Williams, even though it wasn't a vintage performance, him throwing for 224 yards and 3 touchdowns in this game and keeping a lot of plays alive with his legs was a big reason why North Carolina was able to stay in it as long as they did with all the Clemson mistakes. So even though it wasn't a vintage performance for Williams, I think that he played well enough to definitely win the game. But he, it's a shame that we didn't get to see him on one final drive. He is a senior, so it would have been nice to see him on that final drive in the ACC championship game with a chance to go down and, make history for his team and for his school and really put his name out there as not dark horse Heisman contender, but one of those guys that kind of flew under the radar all year and kind of had his moment.
Mike, you mentioned the Heels staying in it, and as we know and noted off the top, it could have been a real tight game at the finish if that call goes the other way. But there's nothing on the stat sheet that indicates that North Carolina should have stayed this close. Marquise Williams has an ineffective game for the most part, despite 3 touchdown passes. Elijah Hood only goes for 65 yards. Clemson outgains North Carolina 608 to 332. They possess the ball for 39 minutes to 21. They crank out 33 first downs to 21. Everything points to a Clemson 21-point win, at least, but Carolina stays in it.
Yeah, they stayed in it. And, like I said before, all the Clemson mistakes, the penalties, the botched special teams plays, just all of these things culminated to North Carolina staying in the game as long as they did. And I think a lot of it has to go to Larry Fedora for keeping his team in it. He just got his new 7-year deal this morning to stay with the Tar Heels. He was rumored at a couple different schools, including Virginia Tech, before they eventually hired Justin Fuente. So for them to keep Larry Fedora on staff and at the school for a very long time, I think is huge for the North Carolina program. And his coaching is a big reason why they were able to stay in the game despite being outgained as much as they were. And hats off to Deshaun Watson, over 420 all-purpose yards. He single-handedly outgained North Carolina by himself. And his 5 touchdowns was the reason that Clemson was able to win this game.
A lot of commentators, Mike, mentioned Alabama passing the eye test as number 1, but I just don't see how the College Football Playoff Committee could deny this Clemson team number 1.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so either. Jake Coker, for the Alabama quarterback, had a very nice day today. He was efficient. A lot of it had to do with Derrick Henry in the second half, kind of setting up that the passing ability of him to open it up with a play action deep down the field. But I just don't think that Alabama is a complete enough team. They have a very good defense, and they have one of the best running backs in the country in Derrick Henry. But I feel like if there's a team in the college football playoff that they match up against that can find a way to slow Derrick Henry down long enough to get ahead in the game, I don't think Jake Coker is a quarterback for Alabama that will be able to lead the team down the field and kind of get them back into the game. I just don't believe in his passing ability. I don't think Alabama does either. There's a reason why Derrick Henry has gone for over 40 attempts in multiple games this season. I mean, they're running the ball to a degree that they are because they not only do they have a workhorse running back, but they don't have a quarterback that can, that's capable of handling a heavy passing load. I think A.J. McCarron was a guy for Alabama for a number of years that was able to throw the ball and extend plays and get the ball deep down the field. I'm just not sure Jake Coker's the guy. He had a couple passes he hung up this afternoon that in all honesty should have been intercepted, but they got some athletic receivers there at Bama, and they recruit with some of the best schools in the SEC and better a lot of times than a lot of the schools in the conference. And they have some big time playmakers that went up and to their credit made a lot of big plays down the stretch. But yeah, I just don't believe that Alabama is a complete enough team. Whereas you look at Clemson, they lost 10 out of 11 starters on defense last season. Coming into the year, they have one of the top defenses in the country. Deshaun Watson can run the ball. He can throw the ball. You got a great running back in Wayne Gallman when healthy. Tonight he goes for 187 and a touchdown, and he was a huge reason why Clemson was able to win this game as well. So, I think Clemson is one of the most complete teams in it. I really like Oklahoma. I expect them to, after what they did to Oklahoma State last weekend, to definitely be in the college football playoff when the rankings come out tomorrow. And I think they're as a complete team as any in the country as well. So I think Clemson will be the number 1 team, long story short. And I think Alabama will stay at 2.
Yeah, see, I can definitely appreciate your analysis, Mike. You were looking at it from measuring the teams, watching them on the field. I was just looking at resume and thinking Clemson needs to maintain the number 1 spot because they're undefeated and they beat Florida State and Notre Dame and a North Carolina team that was in the top 10 with only 1 loss. Michigan State, I would actually rank them number 2. I know that's not going to happen, but Alabama did not beat Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan, and Iowa. The resume is just not there for Alabama. I think they're probably the best team, but I would not place them at number 1. Clemson would be the decided number 1 just for being undefeated, winning the ACC, and having a tough conference game with Notre Dame. So I'm sure we'll have much discussion in the coming weeks about the college football playoff, and the bowl selections come out tomorrow as well. So Mike, we'll try to catch up with you to talk some ACC postseason play here soon.
Yeah, that sounds great, Mark. Thanks for having me on.